G'day guys, Leigh Diprose here from fstoplounge.com. Today I'm here to talk about landscape photography. It's one of my big passions in life. You know, being outdoors with your tripod and camera and actually experiencing the elements, there's nothing quite like it, and you get to enjoy the scenery while you're there as well. So many photographers who start out actually enjoy doing this, and that's probably because it doesn't involve sort of portraiture or anything like that. You're not taking photos of people. So something I noticed when I was looking back at my photos, thinking about what sort of video to make, I was thinking, like, you know, I wasn't the best photographer back then. And a lot of photographers, when they first start out, actually experience the same problem. And that is, when they actually take a landscape photo, yeah, sure enough, the scenery is great, but you're getting overexposure in your sky. And that's purely because the sky is just, it's brighter. You know, there's not a lot of subject matter to absorb that light. So you find the foreground is perfectly exposed, but that highlight area of the sky is just completely blown out. So I'm here sort of to give you a couple of tips, 3 different ways to adjust that balance so you get it right. So the first one is using Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Lightroom or some sort of post-processing software. In this case, I'm using Adobe Photoshop Lightroom 5. So all you need to do is actually click on the top of the image with your gradient filter, drag down to the bottom of the image or where you find that the exposure is correct. Then you simply use your exposure slider to adjust where you want the exposure to be. And you'll notice it change on the actual preview screen. And what's happening is it's actually adjusting exposure at the top of the image right the way down to the bottom and gradually fading out to the correct exposure. One thing you do want to note is you need to be shooting in RAW because you actually have more exposure latitude that way. If you're trying to do the same in JPEG and you've got an overexposed image, that detail isn't there when you've shot it. So what tends to happen is your whites or the blown out areas turn grey and muddy, and you don't want that one in your photos. It looks crap. So that's one reason to shoot RAW. Okay, the second option is using a filter. In this case, I use a neutral density filter, but you can use a circular polarizer, and a lot of photographers, when they first start out, go for this option because it's the slightly cheaper option. And what that does, it's like wearing polarizing sunglasses. It just darkens your image by about 2 stops, and you find it will have a variable bit at the front. And what that variable bit does, it cuts out reflection. So you can cut out the reflection on the water, and you can actually make your blues more vivid and greens more vivid by actually rotating that ring at the front of the filter itself. But what I tend to use is these ones. This one here is a Hoya HMC, and the HMC just means it's a slightly thinner filter than most filters. So when it's on a wide angle lens, you're not actually going to see the outer rim of it. This one here is an ND8, and when I say ND8, it means neutral density plus 8, which means that I can pop that onto my lens and actually shoot a great landscape photo in the middle of the day and just have a longer exposure. So typically, if I was to go outside and I'm at the beach and it's 12 o'clock or noon in the middle of the day, it's very, very bright, especially in here in Australia. And my shutter speed may only get to about 1/250th of a second or 1/400th of a second to get that exposure. But if I want to actually drop down my shutter speed to slow down that water to make it look like silk running over rocks, all I need to do is pop in one of these filters, and it means my shutter speed can then go down to, 1/6 of a second or even 1 second. So using one of these just means you can have a longer exposure in a brighter condition. So the third way is my preferred, and that's using Leigh filters. You know, they're these little things. They'll say Leigh like this, great name by the way, but spelled differently. And they'll come with a case, and that's very, very nice of them. You know, they are quite expensive. There's like, I think I paid $800 for the 3 of mine. And what they are ideally is a big rectangular filter, but you'll need these things, and these come actually in the kit. I think this one you might have to buy separately because they're different sizes. This one is like a glorified frisbee. It's a little frisbee, but it's a 72mm frisbee, and that basically screws onto the front of your lens so you can add the holder. And you notice on the holder here it's got 2 bars. That means you can slide in 2 filters, but it will come with a couple of little expansion packs where you can add more filter holders if you wish. So getting onto the filters. The filters themselves look like this. They're massive, and the quality of them is superb. I can't fault them. So that's why you pay quite a lot more for them. They're handmade in England or something. I'm sure if you do a YouTube search, you can see a factory tour on how they're made. But what they basically offer, this is the hard set, and you notice it's called a hard set because the graduation is quite hard. It's not soft from here to here, it's just from there to there. And what it means is I can line up that on my horizon and know that when I'm exposing this here, this area is going to line up with the sky, which is going to give me, you know, a balanced exposure with the foreground and the sky. So I can really adjust these and stack them together to get a different density or different exposure. So there's sort of three ways that you can sort of do things to actually get a better landscape. So if you did learn something, let me know. Thumbs up on this. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.